First of all, I would just like to say a big welcome on behalf of Top Drawer Connected and Harrogate at Home. I'd really like to thank Jordan and the whole team, and Amy and the whole team, for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I know that they are working really hard at the moment to bring you inspirational and informative content at this time. So if you have got any suggestions about anything that you'd like to know about, then they are the team that you want to contact. So contact the Top Drawer team, Harrogate at Home, and they are all ears to hear your suggestions. So many people, fantastic. Aveline from Howden Home in Edinburgh says, my link just says from me. Yes, that's how it looks to you. Okay, so just a couple of really quick housekeeping things before we get started. First off, the chat. As you can see, you have got the ability to say hello to other attendees and tell us who you are, where you're coming from. It's really, really useful to know. Again, just to select when it says to, before you chat, if you click the down arrow, and it says all panelists and attendees. So if you want to say anything, that is to everybody, or just, you know, introduce yourself to everybody, then that's the one that you want to select. Otherwise, only the presenters can see it. The other thing that you have got is the Q&A. So the Q&A is separate to the chat. I mean, those of you who've been on a lot of Zoom meetings, you don't really need me to tell you this, but just to let you know that it's much, much easier for me to see your questions if you put them into the Q&A, because what happens with the chat is it gets very busy and noisy, especially with as many of you wonderful people here this morning as there are. So it's just really helpful to me for questions to go into the Q&A, just much easier and quicker for me to find them. So if you ask a question and I don't respond to it, again, making sure that it's in the Q&A, and I will do my very best to get through all the questions as much as I can. The session today is going to run for about an hour with the questions. I'm going to be speaking probably for sort of 20 to 30 minutes, and then we'll go into the Q&A. Fantastic. Can everyone hear me okay? Just before we get started. Great. Okay. Excellent. Everyone can hear. Brilliant. Fantastic. What else do I need to tell you? Oh yes, just one little thing to note is that while I am presenting, while I'm sharing my screen and presenting, then I can't actually see the questions in the chat. It's just a funny little thing about Zoom. So what I will do is I will pause from time to time, and I'll come back and check and see if there are questions. But it will mean there's a little bit of sort of slightly awkward switching between screens. So you just have to forgive me for that. Okay, let's kick off. Okay. Oh, yes, Magda says I can't see anyone else though. Yes, Magda, that's a great point. So we do have Jordan and Amy here. They are here from Top Drawer Connected and Harrogate at Home. They are just not visible right now, but they are here. So that's why you can only see my lovely head. It's not, do not adjust your set, as they say. Okay. Right, let's get going. So today's theme is how to use this time to come back stronger. And just before we kick off, really quickly, a little bit about me. My name's Catherine Erdly. I'm a retail consultant. I have been working in retail now for 20 years. And a couple of years ago, I left my position at Paperchase and I started my own business. So for the last couple of years, I have been working exclusively with independent brands and retailers, and I work with people on growing their sales, managing their stock, and building long-lasting businesses. And I have one-to-one consultancy and mentoring, and I also have a membership group called the Resilient Retail Club. So my background prior to 2018, when I started my own business, was very much the high street. So for example, I was at Paperchase, I've worked at Laura Ashley, I've worked for Coast, the Austin Reed Group, and I was in the US for about 5 years working for a big, large US company. And every time, my role during that time was in the merchandising team. It's one of the 3 product teams within a big retailer. And I was working with the creative teams, the buying and design teams, on how creative ideas make money. and that is, and also on overall strategy as well. And that's very much the approach that I take with the independent brands and retailers that I work with. Okay, enough about me. Just one more thing, actually, I guess to say is that part of the reason that I am doing these talks is because I have been in retail for 20 years. So although the situation that we're in right now is completely off the charts, you know, off the scale, the most extreme situation that any of us have ever experienced in our lifetimes, there are some parallels, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, about the 2008 financial crash, for example, and really the mindset that worked for people, what really worked for brands and retailers at that time, and helped them come back stronger, which is, of course, the theme of today. So the talk is really in two parts. There's the first part, the points 1 to 4. We're going to be talking about you as business owners, and we're going to be talking about what you can do in order to look at your own business and almost, if you like, coach yourself through a series of questions to help you identify what to do next. And then the final 4 points are more general about what's working really well. So businesses that are continuing to do well or are seemingly coming back stronger from this situation, what they're doing and how that's helping them, and how you can apply those to your own business. So what I will do now is I'll go through the points 1 to 4, and then I'll pause and go back and check the Q&A. As I said, I can't currently see it. And then I will continue with the final 4 points. So just in case you think I'm ignoring your question, so I promise you I'm not. Okay, so then the first thing really is to think about what I call an immediate audit, which, to be honest, especially if you are a bricks and mortar retailer and you have either just reopened or are planning to reopen on the 15th or shortly after, then, you know, this is not something that I need to even tell you to do, because you'll be right in the thick of it and you'll be doing your risk assessments and everything else. But it is just a point to say that at this time where, you know, so much has happened in the last 10 weeks, just taking a moment, that all it really needs to be is taking that moment to think about what are the next couple of months going to look like for you. Of course, we can't see into the future, but it's just really, really valuable to think about things like your supply chain. How are you able to operate right now? Potential future issues, staffing. What do you need in your business right now? What have you got, and what do you need to move forward? The point about potential future issues is, of course, we're in a situation where we don't really know necessarily what is going to be happening. I mean, none of us know really, but it's taking that time to have a bit of a think about a worst case scenario, which, you know, again, this time last year, if I'd said to you, you need to think about a worst case scenario where you can't operate, you know, you can't be in the same room as your team, you can't, you know, you have to shut down your fulfillment center, all of those things, then it would seem completely ludicrous. But given what we know and given what we've just been through, it's not ludicrous right now to be thinking about, okay, so where am I right now? What have I got? What can I do? What can't I do? You know, what's my staffing situation? And also looking forward, what could possibly happen, because we simply don't know if this lockdown easing is going to be a one-way street, or if it will be, there may be sort of fluctuations in and out of lockdown. So it's well worth your while having that thought process now. Okay. Then the second thing to do is a business review. So a business review sounds like a, you know, long, complicated process. It really doesn't have to be. What I'm basically talking about is a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. It can be done very quickly. You can take a piece of A4 paper, fold it in half again. You've got 4 quadrants. You write strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats on it, and then you just sit and brainstorm. If you can get yourself half an hour to just think about this, it can be really helpful to just kind of clarify, because a lot of the conversations that I've been having with people over the last 10 weeks has been partly about huge practical challenges in their business, but then also the challenge as a business owner of feeling overwhelmed and feeling unsure and not really being aware of, not just being able to focus and concentrate really. So as much as possible, when you're in that kind of the real weeds, it's really hard to kind of step back and see the big picture. So that's why the business review allows you to have a bit of that focus and to think about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And those of you, so Natalie, for example, who works with me at Pagechase, you know, this is something that bigger retailers, for example, do a lot. So okay, I can actually see that there's a Q&A, so I'm just going to pop in. Will we get a copy of the presentation? Okay, Shirley, yes, that's fine. I can send over the slides. Thank you for that question. And Amanda says she can't hear me. I think you might be on mute. Is anyone else having that problem? Or is everyone else okay? Are we good? Hang on a minute. I can hear you. Okay, all right. Sorry, Amanda. I think it might be you. Okay, sorry. Let me go back. So the business review then. So strengths, it's really important to start with what has been working well, and if at the moment you're not able to trade or things have been very difficult, cast your mind back to prior to lockdown. So why is it important to start with your strengths? You know, what is that? What's even the point of that? Well, really the purpose of looking at your strengths first is there's two things. Number one, if you're feeling stuck or in a fearful mindset, or you're just feeling overwhelmed, it can be very hard to work out what you need to do to go forward. So sometimes doing the simple exercise of thinking about what was going well can help you get from that fear mindset into the kind of curiosity about what's happening now and how you can move forward. And if I go back to 2008, which is what I alluded to at the beginning, when 2008 happened, there were two types of retail businesses. I mean, there's probably two types of businesses across all sectors, but I was been in retail, so that's the only one I can speak to. There were two types of businesses, and I worked for, just to give you an example, I worked for the Austin Reed Group, whose primary business was selling men's suits, and I joined them 2 weeks after Lehman Brothers collapsed, and the large numbers of people in the financial sector who were big clients of Austin Reed went bust, or laid people off. So the market, as you can imagine, for men's formal suits at that time was somewhat depressed. So there's two types of businesses that you see at these times. One, get very caught up in what I can only really describe as grief, and I think that it's important to acknowledge that it is grief, and it's not to belittle people's feelings at all, because actually when you've worked really, really hard on your business and you've built it to a point that is doing really well, and then you have something like this situation come along, and through absolutely no fault of your own, you have to watch the business that you've worked go through some really difficult times, then absolutely that is a form of grief. So I think, sorry about that. I think that it's important to acknowledge that, but at the same time, if you get stuck too long in that grief, it kind of freezes you into this fear-based, you're not in an action state. Because, so in 2008, there were two types of businesses, one that got stuck in the fear, and they spent a huge amount of time almost in that sort of angry disbelief as what had happened, and almost like justifying why things weren't going well, and they generally just were not focusing on the future. So focusing on your strengths allows you to be the second type, which is that you get curious about the new situation that we're in, and it allows you to focus on what you can do to move forward. And ultimately, it's almost, as Roosevelt said, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. It's one of those situations where the longer you get stuck in the, frankly, really difficult reality of what's happened to a lot of businesses, the harder it is for you to move forward. So start with your strengths. That's a very long way of me saying start with your strengths. Really focus on celebrating your successes. I don't want to assume that people haven't had successes since lockdown, because I think a lot of independent brands, particularly those with stronger online presences, have had really good, really strong trading the last 10 weeks. That's different depending on your business model and your situation. But look back to prior to the coronavirus, what was working really well. And as far as possible, try and understand why it was working well. So what were your best-selling products? What were your customers really reacting to? Which of the marketing that you were doing was really resonating with your customers and driving results? Which of your team members were really performing? So had you recruited the right help to help you with your products? Had you really nailed what your customer wanted? So not just celebrating those successes, which makes you feel good and makes you feel action focused, but then also really trying to dig in and delve and understand why that was working, because that will really help you shape what goes forward. Because what you don't want to do is, as the phrase goes, is throw the baby out with the bathwater. So you don't want to put together a plan for how you're going to move forward, and in doing so, disregard everything that you were doing before that was really actually working. So then your weaknesses, or areas of growth, if you prefer. This is just your opportunity to reflect. This is not a blame game. But then there's going to be two types of areas of development. So then the first one is going to be the laundry list that we've all got as business owners of things that we know that we need to do, whether it's we know we don't do enough PR, or we know that we don't have a strong enough online, our website really needs updating, or we really need to get a handle on SEO or email marketing, or those kind of things. So those might be on your list of kind of your sort of laundry list, as it were. And then the other one is, what has the coronavirus shown you about your business? So is it that your online presence, which you kind of had in the back of your mind, was not as where you wanted it to be? Then now you're seeing that actually the coronavirus has shown you that it really isn't strong enough. Or maybe you're really heavily reliant on one supplier, and what this has shown you is that supplier shut down very quickly and you were left completely vulnerable. It could have shown you vulnerabilities in your supply chain. So think about those things that are really only coming to light because of this situation. So then you move on to the opportunities. So again, going back to the positives. So often this is related to your areas of development. So your areas of development become your opportunities. If you know that you don't do enough PR, one of your opportunities is to expand the amount of PR that you're doing. If you're being closed for the coronavirus has shown you that you're really over reliant on wholesale as an income stream, one of your opportunities is to diversify your income stream. So it's not rocket science, it's fairly straightforward, but it's taking those things and instead of kind of seeing them as painful failures or things that you should have fixed or done, then it's allowing you to really focus on, okay, well, what's the opportunity here? So it's turning that negative into a positive. So, and you can think about, first off, any areas of development and what that means for your opportunities, but then also thinking about, are there any other opportunities that are just being brought up now that maybe weren't relevant before? Encouraging people to click and collect, for example, from your website to your store, that maybe wasn't something that you would have ever considered before, but now the situation is meaning that you do want to consider that. Opportunities to pivot, so whether that's offering additional services or additional products. And then also kind of a bit of a blue sky, like, okay, so what could you do as your business? And there's a great exercise I've done groups before where they have to write down 25 opportunities to move their business forward. And the purpose of writing down so many is that it forces you to go beyond the ones that would automatically spring to mind, and kind of dig deep and come up with some things that just a little bit different. I think the other thing to really think about with the opportunities is that is to really think about your opportunities to connect with where the customers are right now and what's driving purchasing decisions. And definitely during lockdown, we were seeing purchasing decisions being based on protecting themselves and their families, connecting with loved ones, gifting being huge, which I think will continue to be really huge, and also distracting, so people wanting distraction for themselves and for their children, so crafting kits, educational materials, and lots to do with the children, keeping children busy. Obviously, now that we're easing out of lockdown for now, people will be thinking about different things. So it's again thinking about, well, how can I connect with a customer right now? So, you know, gardens are going to be really, really pivotal this summer, as people spend time with family and friends outdoors, and again, just that opportunity for you to really connect to your customer, because the businesses that have done really, really well right now have been able to tap into what customers want right now. And then threats is finally just to, as I call them, the 3 a.m. thoughts. So what is it going around your mind at 3 a.m. that could be coming down the line for your business? It's worth just jotting those down, if nothing else, to get them out of your brain and to feel like you are, you're kind of seeing them written down on paper. It often really helps. I think the other thing as well is that I don't know if it quite comes under an opportunity or a threat, is it's just to really stress that this is not about an exercise of how things are going to return back to normal, because it just doesn't feel, to be honest, like normal. What was happening before is necessarily going to be what's happening going forward. So definitely focusing in on, you know, if this continues, if we have, you know, restrictions on how people shop and possibility of further lockdowns into the autumn, like, are there things that you maybe had on hold because you felt like, oh, okay, well, this is lockdown now, but then things are going to return back to normal? Are there things that, you know, in all honesty, as a business owner, you've kind of parked? Do you need to sort of unpark those, or do you need to really confront the fact that you need to plan for a new normal? So what does that look like? And often that relates to, you know, online. The UK penetration of online purchasing has shot up over 1/3. So I think that all businesses going forward would do very well to consider how they can develop that online side of their business. It just feels like it's no longer something that might be useful. It's something that will be part of the future of a lot of businesses going forward. Okay, so then point 3 is to think about where you actually want to go. This may sound a little bit, what's the word? Woo-woo, for want of a better word. But actually it's really important, because when you do this exercise and you think about all the opportunities, what you really need to do is connect with, as a business owner, where do you want this business to go? Thinking about, in 2 years' time, if somebody interviewed you and said, and you were going to tell them the story of how you came out of this situation and what you did with your business, you want to make that connection to where you actually want to take it, because it's easy to get distracted or see other people doing things. It's easy to get shoulded all over, where people will tell you that you should be doing this or you should be doing that. You know, including people like me. If I say something about online, you know, growing your digital presence and that, and you just know in your heart of hearts that's not the route for your business, then, you know, as business owners, you are the experts in your business. So focus on where you want to take it. And that, I think that is really, really important to connect with that, because ultimately you're not going to put your heart and soul into moving your business forward unless you're doing it in a way that feels aligned with your vision for the business and your beliefs and your values, and also just the things that feel really exciting to you. So it's important, when you come up with all these ideas and these opportunities, that you narrow it down to the ones that you feel are exciting. And then finally on this part is making a plan of action. So the danger with doing a business review and coming up with the vision of where you want to take the business is that it can then feel just really overwhelming and you almost feel back to square one. Not to mention the fact that several of us are kind of running our businesses now in tiny snippets of time during the day that we've snatched from all of our other responsibilities. So make a plan of action based on what you're going to do in the short term, what you're going to do, short term being the next month, what you're going to do in the medium term, the next sort of 1 to 3 months, and what you're going to do 3 months and longer. And the really key thing here is to be realistic. And there's a great phrase which says that we overestimate what we can do in a day, but we underestimate what we can do in a year. And often, if you're looking at something major, like, you know, upgrading your website, investing in social media, really, you know, digging into your email campaigns, your acquisition, anything like that, bringing out new products, diversifying your supply base, building up alternative revenue streams. All of these things, they take time, and the quickest way to get overwhelmed and stuck is to decide you have to do them all right now. So if you have almost a year plan, because this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint, you've got a year plan, you can see how you can map out everything that you want to do. You just can't do it all at the same time, and it's the best way to do a review and then avoid getting overwhelmed. So let me take a break for a minute. Okay, what is the best way to get contact with shops, hotels? Spa, email, phone, or direct visit? The thing is, no one really reads emails, and trying to catch management without arranging a meeting is not professional. Okay, well, actually, funnily enough, we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the next half. Is CareerWay a good platform, popular to get contact with potential shop and start selling wholesale? Yeah, let's come back to that. I think that's worth talking about, but we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, let's go back. Okay, funnily enough, we have this question about how to contact people. So that was the first bit, which is about really, as a business owner, thinking about your own business and you as the expert and thinking about how you're going to move forward. The second half is about some key things that you can be doing right now, even if you aren't yet reopened, or if you've had to stop trading for some reason, or just generally, even if you are still trading, but you want to kind of think about this time and what you can do, or you are trying busily to diversify your income streams, or anything else really in your business. And that is to focus on building relationships. So again, a great phrase, I always have these little phrases I like, but this one is, it's not B2B or B2C, it's H to H, which is human to human. And I think what that really means is that right now, then there will be people who are really important to your business, customers. The majority of product businesses will be getting around 40% of their sales from around 8% of their customers. So that means that all of us have a small group of people who are very important to our business. Suppliers obviously are a really crucial part of any business, and maybe key accounts, especially if you're wholesale or you're looking to grow wholesale. So have you been keeping in touch with them? So for example, at the beginning of this way back in 10 weeks ago, a lot of people felt there were, a lot of businesses had to make decisions, for example, cancelling orders, or they were let down by suppliers, and it was a very difficult time. But what I was saying then, and it still holds true now, is that you still have to have those human-to-human conversations, because for every order that got cancelled, there's somebody there who's had to make a really difficult decision. And so the most important thing is building those relationships, because that is how we grow our businesses, and that is how we continue to make progress through this new normal, is by talking to the people who are important to our business. So if you haven't been able to, some people reacted in different ways. Some people have been very much keeping in contact, and some people have been almost a bit, not radio silence, but I've just found it really difficult. But if you've not been having conversations, then now have these conversations. And if you're looking to expand on wholesale, or you're looking for new accounts for your business, then it's not to say that you can't have those conversations. It doesn't always have to be a selling conversation. In fact, if the first conversation you try and have with somebody who you're looking to help you build your business, whether that's through a supplier or an account or anybody else, if the first conversation you try and have with them is a selling conversation, it generally doesn't go as well. So social media, we talk a lot about that, but it's not just a broadcast channel. You can broadcast your thoughts as a business owner, but also think of it like a telephone. You can talk to anybody you want on social media by interacting with their public content, or even interacting with on Instagram to interact with their stories, then you going into their direct messages. So you can start reaching out and interacting with people. As I said, it's not necessarily a sales conversation, but ask people how they're doing. Start getting a feeler for who's out there looking for new brands and new products and who's not right now. Start getting an understanding of the people. If you are looking to connect with new people and to expand your revenue streams, then, you know, start trying to understand the people that you're going to be pitching to, because, you know, especially if you're trying to sell to another business, then it's really important that you do your research. That's all stuff that you can do right now. Find out about them, find out if you'd be a good fit for them, find out if your business would work with their business. But all of those things can be done right now. And in fact, building relationships and talking to either people who are already important to your business or people that you would like to be important to your business later, then those are all really, really key things for business owners to be doing now. And then the other one is to stay close to your customers. So an engaged audience is key. This has been true right from the get-go, and I've been encouraging people, even if they've not been able to trade, if they've been closed, to keep talking to their customers so that you remain top of mind. Bring them along on your journey. I really can't stress that enough. The people who have done really well during this time, yes, partly it's been about product type and having the right products for this time, but also a lot of it has been about them as business owners connecting with their customers, so understanding what they want and talking to them. Conversation is so, so key. And at this time especially, so for example, bricks and mortar stores, as they're reopening, I've seen some incredible conversations from those businesses who are totally transparent. They're sharing with their customers what modifications they're making to the store. They're explaining to them about their cleaning routines. They're explaining about all of the precautions that they're putting into place, the signage that they're using, the one-way systems, the flows around the stores. Don't be afraid to share what you're doing, and don't be afraid to ask them if there's anything else that you can make them feel comfortable and make them feel supported. And that goes as well if you're supporting other businesses, you know, ask them how can I support you? Is there anything that you need from me right now? But staying close and engaged with your customers is so crucial, and it can happen at any point in this process. Even if you can't trade, you can still talk to your customer, you can still tell them about what's going on for you in your business, and you can still help encourage them to think forward and involve them in product decisions that you're making for later on in the year. Even it's all about engaging with them and not just going silent. And then the last 2 points I have to include just because of my background, but it's about your sales planning and your stock management. And these are just really key points to think about. So having a sales plan is a really powerful tool in your business. So, you know, create it or update it. People have asked me, you know, what is the purpose of me having a sales plan, especially if at the moment it's got 0 in it or there really aren't very many sales. But the thing is that the businesses I've worked with throughout this time who've had a sales plan have been able to make adjustments because they've been able to see what impacts the situation's having on their sales plan and look forward into the future to work out what impact that has for them later on in the year. So even, as I said, even if it has 0 or little sales on right now, it's going to help you map out what your path is looking like. And a lot of businesses are walking a very delicate line in terms of cash flow, and also understanding what kind of stock you might need in your business. And having a sales plan is going to help you understand that. And you have to be, if I were you, I would be pretty realistic about it, you know, not quite worst case scenario, but, you know, we just simply don't know. We don't know what the next few months are going to hold. So it would make sense to put in a conservative estimate for what your sales are going to look like. But at least you're confronting that reality now, which will help you with decisions that you need to make about managing your cash flow. And then the final one then is managing your stock. So this is, again, it's been such a strange time, and we went into lockdown very much in the spring, and we're coming out in the summer. So a lot of people are in a situation where, you know, we went in before Mother's Day, we're coming out nearer Father's Day. So it's a really good time for you to think about, right, doing a full inventory check if you don't already have that, you know, constantly updating. Work out what you've got, work out what you're missing, work out what can carry forward, and getting a really good sense of, you know, are there things that you need to clear because you've just got too much stock in the business and you still need to bring in the new stock for the end of the year? And, you know, is there anything that you could store, for example? I mean, a lot of people, under normal circumstances, you wouldn't necessarily be looking to carry stock from one year to the next. But in this particular situation, if you've got a lot of really great stock that is just not seasonally appropriate right now, You know, you can either hit it really hard, discount it to clear it, which, you know, some people will need to do, especially for cash flow purposes. But then you could also consider if some of that can live on and be put aside for next year. So definitely kind of housekeeping, thinking ahead, thinking about, even if you don't need stock overall as a business, there will always be pockets of things where you might be missing opportunities if you don't top up, or you may need to purchase a new seasonal product, for example. So taking the time to plan out your sales and to really look at your stock at this time is really key and will help you come back stronger. Okay, so that is all from me for right now. For before I go over and look through the questions, just to quickly say before we go on to questions rather, that I'm at Future Retail UK on Instagram, Facebook, and also resilientretail.com is my resilient retail membership. Okay, let's have a look what we've got. I'm having difficulty in getting suppliers to help me. Seems that they are expecting the retailers to foot the bill of unsold stock. Some are giving me discounts, but a lot are not. Any tips on how to handle this? That's a really interesting question. Okay, so I think that I think this goes back to the human to human. I would like to think, Shirley, that you can only do what you can do. You can only do what you've got the ability to do. So if you cannot, I'm assuming, is this things that you've taken delivery of and maybe not had, and I'm not quite sure what the situation is, but I think you just have to be really honest and upfront. And in the best situation, a supplier will be willing to talk to you and to hopefully come to some kind of agreement. But yeah, you can only do what you can do as a business owner, and I think that's part of that, trying to appeal to one human to another. Okay, so we had a question about shops and hotels. No one really reads emails. I mean, I think to be honest, most people who have sold into shops, hotels, or who have sold B2B will, you know, a lot of the time it is about numbers. It's about finding the right businesses and reaching out to them. And you know, I definitely don't think trying to turn up without arranging a meeting is going to be that useful. But I think a lot of it is about doing your research. It's about contacting or interacting with people before it's a sales conversation, so that when then they do get an email from you or an approach from you, then it's not totally cold. It's like they've become familiar with you, they've become familiar with their name. Is Creo8 a good platform popular to get contact with potential shops and start wholesale? Creo8, I mean, there's a lot of new platforms springing up. I think that the best situation is, if you're planning on looking at a wholesale platform, is to try and talk to other brands who've maybe used it. Obviously, there are quite a fair few out there, and it's worth trying to understand, are they, you know, do they represent brands that look like you? Does it look like, have you spoken to anyone who's had a good result from them? Okay, can you, oh, Shirley says this is current stock and autumn winter stock to come. Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to, you know, Shirley, again, and I know it's difficult, especially often in these situations, it's about who's the most important to who. So if they're a massive supplier and you're a small retailer, it's going to be a more difficult conversation. But, you know, ultimately, if you've placed an autumn order and it's not needed, I mean, is there a way that you can delay it? Is there a way that you can reduce it? Are they open to that kind of conversation? Can you talk us through doing sales plan, please? What do you include? Yes, a sales plan. Preferably, I like to do my sales plans by week. That goes back to many years in retailers where you're always tracking your weekly sales plan. If otherwise, you could do it by month. Just a basic monthly sales plan. How much cash do you think you're going to take by month is very useful. If you have multiple revenue streams, if you're selling, you know, for example, not on the high street, your own website, and wholesale, you would want to do a plan for each one of those revenue streams. So you're not just saying, oh, I want to take, you know, X £1,000 this week, but you understand where that's coming from. So I would suggest that you start by breaking it down into the different streams of revenue into your business and looking at a combination of your historic performance. If you've been running for more than a year, then you should have an idea of seasonally how you sell. and also looking at how are you trending. So if you're trending, if prior to lockdown you were 50% up on the year, week on week, then you can assume that your last year figures will be higher this year, or hopefully. But you might want to make that a bit more conservative. So maybe if you had been trading 50% up on the year, then maybe you're going to consider being, 20% up after lockdown, hopefully, fingers crossed, who knows. But again, it's about being conservative. It's really not about overthinking it. One of the reasons people don't have sales plans is they tell me either their plan is to sell as much as possible, which I totally hear, but I think that that's difficult because then you never know when to celebrate because who knows if you've sold as much as possible. The second reason people say they don't have sales plans is because they don't know what number to put in. But I always think that it's better to start with a reasonable, logical number for your sales forecast. If you gave 5 people the same exercise, they'd all come up with slightly different numbers. But as long as it's logical and reasonably conservative, given the amount of uncertainty we've got right now, start with a plan, just get it down, because it just helps you understand so much more about your cash flow. And as you go along in your trade, you can update it week on week. That was a very short answer. It's quite a long subject, but hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense. Okay, Graham says, stock needs reducing down to make space. Have 2 websites currently and have retail which is closed. So how else could you reduce stock reasonably in a short time scale? Okay, so if you want to clear stock, if the main purpose that you need, your main goal is to clear stock and to free up cash, then the best way, the quickest way of doing it is to offer a significant discount. So 50% off, for example. So obviously that is not profitable, but if you're talking about stock clearance, it's the easiest, simplest mechanism to clear stock. There are other options as well. If you don't want to, for example, let's say you have 2 websites, it could be that some people, for example, when they want to clear, they might have a separate channel that you can't even see as if you're looking at their main website. So for example, if you're a clothing brand, you might have a Depop store, which is where you put all of your heavily discounted products. Or if you're not a clothing brand, you might have an eBay store, which is where you sell. You maybe don't even reference that it's linked to your main business, and you clear it that way. Stock clearance, deep discount is the quickest, easiest way to do it, but obviously has profit implications. And then similarly, if you don't want it to be visible on your main business, to do it in a separate channel. I mean, there are people who will come and take your stock, jobbers, but you will get pennies in the pound for it. So it's often about working out what can you clear yourself. Bonnie says, do you have recommendations on content for email marketing and newsletters for current customers, and also how to build that email list in the current situation? Great question. I mean, again, email marketing is a pretty long topic, but I think that your newsletters are the perfect opportunity for you to talk to your customer directly, tell them what's going on. So if you haven't sent an email out to your customer, it may be worth your while sending one which explains what's the situation with your business, what your plans are going forward. The other thing I also should really say, which I don't think I stressed enough when I was talking about this, is the idea about reopening. So for those of you who are bricks and mortar stores who are looking to reopen, and I was talking about, sharing with your customers about the plans, I think it's really important as well to have that sense of celebration. And so obviously you've had to make major adjustments and do your risk assessments on your businesses. But I think also, so if you've got an email list and you want to send it out, I mean, I absolutely would encourage you to talk about your reopening as a very celebratory thing. Otherwise, in general, product businesses should be sending emails about their products. So, I always suggest for email marketing that you keep it very simple. You have a nice, consistent format. Every time you send a newsletter, you have, feature your product of the month. You tell them something about the business, and you share your thoughts about what's coming up or something like that. Some very basic format that you can just replicate, because people like repetition and they like to feel familiar when they see your emails coming in. But don't be afraid to focus on your products, because that's what people expect to see from product businesses. Obviously, as I said, when you're doing a business update, if you've not spoken to them for a long time, then that's a different thing. But absolutely focusing on what you can, focusing on your products and specifically tailoring them to what they might be interested in right now. Build that email list in the current situation. I mean, building your email lists, obviously the traditional one for a product with business is to have the pop-up that says 10% off if your first order. Not everyone, that's not right for everybody. Your other options, otherwise, you have to offer something of value to get people to share their email with you. So what would your customers really like to have? What would be useful to them right now? So if you're a baby brand, can you offer them a PDF download of baby weaning tips, things like that? So really, how to get how to get more people onto your email list relates to giving, what can you give them that they will want to have, they will be happy to exchange their email for. Okay, at the moment, my business earns revenue through, I feel like I'm talking really, really fast. I do apologize. I'm just conscious of the time. Through stocking greeting cards and gift with retailers and selling through my online shops, I'm considering opening my own retail shop. This was the plan before the pandemic. Given the current situation, is now the right time? Any advice would be appreciated. Thanks, Michelle. What a fabulous question, Michelle. Okay, so this is my own personal opinion, and so but my belief is, and there are stats actually that back this up, that post lockdown, as we move into new normal, more people will be shopping locally. There's been, people have done surveys. There's a business called Nia Street that links up local shops with online, for example. They've seen large numbers of rises in searches of people searching for products in the local area. So they are seeing a lot more people searching for local goods, looking to shop local. I actually think that whether it's short term or long term, I don't know, people are going to want to be avoiding trips into large, people are going to want to avoid unnecessary trips, let's put it that way. So by nature of that, I think we'll see more people wanting to shop local. So in a way, and I've had this conversation with people in my local area, I think that, not to say, right, everyone should run out and open a shop tomorrow, but I actually think that in a way it could possibly be a good time if you're talking about being part of a local community, because a lot of businesses, I think a lot of people have become really acutely aware during this time how important independent local businesses are to their local area. And there's been so many examples of them pivoting and offering delivery and offering so many things to their, being really intrinsic part of their local community and how they've survived this situation. And I think some of that goodwill and desire to support them will continue. So that's, again, a very long answer to, I understand what you're saying, but I think if you're talking about an independent brand that's part of a community, I think that could be a positive. I'm really behind on questions. Okay, let me have a quick, I'll try and speed up my answers. Can you flip the contact question? If I was to approach the person who asked the question of how to make contact, how would she receive me? Zoom, phone, etc. The sales team will be wanting to see customers. I'd like to know if they would be welcome and how they should make contact with retailers. Okay, all right, thank you, Nicola. Do you have a vision for the high street of the future? I think hopefully I just answered that as well. Yeah, I think it will be. I think people are going to want, I think that this situation has really accelerated to trends in consumer buying. I think it's really accelerated conscious consumerism. I think people are really thinking very hard about who they're buying from and what their money is supporting, basically. And I think that people are wanting to shop local more. And I think that those two things, yeah, for a medium-sized retailer, absolutely, if you're connecting with your customers, so much of it is around that, keeping that connection. People really want to buy from people who share their values. I think that is, I cannot stress how important that is, and I think that will continue. Publications. Okay, you can suggest reproducing effective sales plans. I think I might have some blog posts on that, Andrea. Yeah, if you look at futureretail.world in my blog, I've got quite a few blogs on various different topics. Julie says, my shop is down a walkway in a shuttered arcade off the main high street in the village. I'm taking as many precautions as I can to make my shop safe and welcoming for customers. My concern is the walkway is narrow, 1.6 metre across. I'm really worried that people won't come down. I'm online. I offer click and collect and currently free delivery in the local area, plus very much reduced postage for posting out. Any suggestions as how I draw people down? Julie, yeah, I think that's difficult. I mean, I think that I'd be interested to know if there are any other shops around you. Are there any, as an area, like a section of your town, are there people who are, are there shops that are open down that alleyway, for example? Is there a way to set up, is there another way out that you could almost set up a one-way system so people don't have to worry about people coming down? Are there other businesses around you that you can work with collaboratively to encourage visits to your area? The other thing is, could you, for example, do appointments with people so that they know they're coming at a specific time? I've talked to a few businesses this week that have been setting up simple scheduling tools that they can share with their customers, like Acuity, ACUITY. I think they have a free version. But you can help people book appointments so that they know that they're coming to you for a specific reason at a specific time. But otherwise, I think it would be about maybe working collaboratively with other businesses around you. But I think everything you're doing online, click and collect, free delivery, I mean, that's all really helpful. Okay, Catherine, thank you for all your helpful information. Do you have any suggestions regarding retail COVID guidelines? We're not sure to do what we shall do regarding changing rooms. Claudia, I think the key thing you have to bring it back to is what is going to make the customer feel the most comfortable. So I have talked to people with clothing stores who are saying that they're going to be allowing people to take things into changing rooms, but then they're only going to be doing appointment-based shopping, so there'll only be one person in the store at a time. That they're also going to have a separate rail for people to put things on after they've tried them on, so they don't go back onto the shop floor, and that they're going to steam everything. So again, a lot of this comes down to what is going to make your customer feel really, really comfortable, because it's a tricky one. If you allow them to take things home and try them all on, then I don't know. I mean, that's difficult in itself, because obviously then they're not even within your shop. You don't know what's happening to them. So I think that it's err on the side of extreme caution and make your customer feel as comfortable as possible. Okay, is it good practice to create a wholesale catalogue? Yes. When offering on products to retail shop, presume you should put retail price, not wholesale. No, if you're sending a wholesale catalogue to a shop, you need to have your retail price, but you need to have your wholesale price as well, so they understand how much they're going to be paying. And then you need to tell them what products you've got. You need to tell them some basic information about you as your business, and make them understand basically why they should put your product on the shelf instead of somebody else's. My main income has been wholesale to museum and gallery gift shops who don't have online shops. I want to see how they were doing, and also obviously when they will reopen, but I'm concerned that people may be furloughed, stressed, and I'm wary of seeming insensitive by asking, can you recommend the best way to approach this? That's a great question. Thank you for that, Helena. I think that I would be led by them slightly. I would have a look and see, you know, are you seeing anything from them at all? Do you have, I mean, if they're furloughed, they can't actually answer emails. They can't answer emails to from their work address. So then it may well be very difficult for you to have that conversation, in all honesty, unless they've willingly shared with you their personal address and said keep in touch, in which case you could reach out via that way. It may be quite difficult. I would be guided by looking at, I mean, I guess a lot of them won't have social media, but you know, sort of, are you seeing, there are businesses you can tell are not currently active, and then there are ones that there are shown signs of activity. So it's maybe worth having a look at, are you seeing much from them? And if not, you may just have to wait a little bit. Wholesale suppliers, we've always found that customers prefer seeing our products, and trade exhibitions are a best source of new customers and repeat orders. Do you see exhibitions moving online in the short term? What changes do you see happening in this arena in the medium and long term? I think that you're right. I think people will always want to see things and feel things. So I think obviously, you know, Top Drawer and Harrogate, they have big plans for, they'll have exactly the same concerns that shops have about making sure that people are feeling really, really comfortable about coming to these events. So they will no doubt be planning them, but with with all the changes in place to make sure that the delegates feel really comfortable and visitors feel really comfortable. I think it's hard to, I think in a way, the more things move online, the more we need physical events as well. And you know, obviously trade shows are really important for seeing the products, but they're also really important for relationship building, and I don't think that will go away. Is there a specific recruitment site for hiring retail staff? I don't know the answer to that, I'm sorry. That says, you're getting loads of questions. This year my plan was to pitch to bigger retailers, but of course timing is now key. Would you suggest I still pitch? Beth, okay, so bigger retailers. I think that they're in the same situation that everyone's in as much as I think they will still be buying because they're going to need seasonal specific products. And I also think, this is the other thing I wanted to stress to everyone as well, is that it's going to be really important to, it's going to continue to be really important to have exciting things for your customers, to have excitement, to have newness. And I think big retailers know that as well as anybody else. So I absolutely think if you've got a product that is right for right now, then you can pitch it to big retailers. If you're a smaller brand, you can also offer them flexibility, smaller quantities, faster delivery that they can't get if they wanted to create that product themselves. So it may well be that they're not going to buy a huge order from you, but they may buy a small order so they can trial something. They can put it in a few stores, they can see how it does. So I absolutely think that yes, you can pitch to bigger retailers. It is a little tricky. Obviously, they've had teams that are furloughed. My experience, often it's actually the buying teams are the ones that aren't furloughed. So because they do still have to keep buying, because retail is driven by novelty, by newness, by what's new, what's hot, what's not, you know, all of those things are really, really important. So I think it's, yeah, absolutely. I would say that I wouldn't expect massive orders right now, but I definitely think that retailers will be looking for new and exciting things. Can you tell us more about the membership side of your business? Yeah, well, absolutely. Tell you what, if you email me, if you can send me a private message here. You can send me your email address, and I will email you. Okay. Contacting museum gallery gift shops. I'm a museum and it's not insensitive to talk to us. What I need is really small minimum orders so I can restock on very cautious, risk-averse budgets. Discounts not of such interest. Thank you. That is excellent. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I think that, yeah, it's not insensitive. It's just, yeah, and I think often, you know, another one of my great phrases, you know, selling is service, right? So if you are instead of approaching with an idea of how can I sell to you, approach it with a way of saying how can I help you, then I think that will be very possible. That will be very beneficial as well. Right, okay, it's nearly 10:30. I think I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much to everybody. And yeah, absolutely, do feel free. I'm at Future Retail UK to give me a follow and send me a DM if you want to have a chat. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for your great questions. It's been really, really interesting to hear them all. I will definitely give my slides to Amy and Jordan at Top Drawer Connected and Harrogate Home, so that if they want to share them afterwards, then they can. Yeah. And have a fantastic day, everybody. And yeah, thank you all so much for being here.